Hi, I'm Obsessing Again. This video looks at the most harrowing but deeply significant mission in not only Call of Duty but in gaming. Call of Duty is a first-person shooter franchise that came out in 2003, with the first 3 games being set during World War II. Subsequently, the team at Infinity Ward took a new, inspired approach: modern warfare. It was a catalyst for first-person shooters, a sense of realism, and looking at wars that went beyond Britain vs Germany or the USA vs Japan. The game shifted from all-out warfare of storming beaches or running through trenches to militant operations. The close quarters combat was rewarding, creating tension on a smaller scale, but gradually being able to raise the stakes through compelling missions. Whilst the subsequent release of World at War was headed by Treyarch, Infinity Ward made plans for a second installment. Sales for World at War were strong, and a new game mode, Nazi Zombies, became more popular than the standard multiplayer, but the appetite for shooters was still in the modern setting. The first Modern Warfare outing was with Call of Duty 4 back in 2007, which looked at situating modern political issues. The big differentiation between the World War II games and Modern Warfare is that these collection of games felt edgy. Edgy seems like a cheap connotation, but these games are trying to be more emotive. When playing World War II games, especially now, it's hard to contextualise the barbaric acts. Though we may have had family connections fighting in these wars, seeing black and white photos feels equally distant to even the likes of civil wars in the 19th century. Though the depictions in this game are fictitious, the inspiration is deeply stemmed from relevant wars that are ongoing. Upon replaying Modern Warfare 2, the setting feels more relatable 15 years after the original release.
Yesterday's enemies are today's recruits. Train them to fight alongside you, and pray they don't eventually decide to hate you for it too.
Welcome to Pull the Trigger 101. Private Allen here is going to do a quick weapons demonstration to show you locals how it's done.
Modern Warfare 2 begins as a typical Call of Duty after the training, being pulled up from the floor in a blurry haze with balls to the wall shooting. Attacking rebel forces in Afghanistan with the parade of destroying buildings is very stereotypically American.
Get up, Private Allen! Rangers, lead the way! Move!
But also looks at the culture of American soldiers and this frat boy mentality. It proves that Infinity Ward was self-aware, showing depictions that didn't paint Americans particularly well.
Alright, we're Oscar Mike! Oh, look, the building's going down! Big for this one!
Keep dreaming, Spielberg!
We're also introduced to Shepard, who is stoic, an archetypal militant figure in the United States. During the campaign, we see different parts of the world represented via their army or particular conflict.
Watch those alleys.
Cover it.
Call of Duty has always had harrowing moments. Crawling through dead bodies and the nuke moment is a standout. Like any game that depicts real warfare or speculates on future war, it's a delicate subject with severe political consequences. But there was a period in the original Modern Warfare trilogy where it struck the perfect balance tonally, gameplay and story. Whilst these games have lost their edge as we've become accustomed to gritty stories and harsh realities, it's clear Modern Warfare 2 created a mission that is infamous but painfully poignant. This leads me to talk about that level. A cut to black in your mission brief is the beginning of this segment. Playing as Joseph Allen, you're under the alias of Alexei. You hear the infamous line said by ringleader Makarov.
Remember, no Russian.
The elevator doors open and you're presented with an airport of civilians as you're armed with automatic machine guns. Replaying this segment 15 years on, and it's equally harrowing. The act of casually obliterating civilians is tough to stomach. It's the blasé way of advancing through the building with such ease as people die in agony. In the timeline of this trilogy, it's the catalyst that sparks the ultimate falling out. The subtle mention of "remember no Russian" was issued so that the police and army would think the terrorist attack was done by the Americans and not the Russians. It's the ultimate red herring. It's a divisive level in gaming circles. The game did give you the option to skip it, and you do not have to kill civilians, but because of the mission setup, you're obliged to. Graphic imagery has always been an option to toggle off before starting a campaign. But everything about this mission is intentional. By providing something the developers deemed potentially too offensive to play entices you more. The game's gritty art direction and cinematic set pieces, it's a very linear experience. When you deviate in missions, the immersion is shattered with the likes of clumsy AI. When you don't hit the specific checkpoint, the game comes to an immobile bullet frenzy. Though these issues can be attributed to being an older game, No Russian leans into a deliberate design choice. In most missions, you can sprint through akimbo style, mowing enemies down. This segment is slowed down. almost prodding you along from behind, forcing you to soak up the screams, dead bodies, and a deeply traumatic moment. The player agency and whether you comply with Makarov's orders is subtly the best part. Typical Call of Duty installments would give large text, blurring the background with a warning of frag grenades or friendly fire. The moment to moment, from walking out the elevator to surveying the pile of bodies, you have the option to shoot or to be passive. It's constantly making you question what you want to do, without any immersion breaking pop-ups. With every death, it reinstated the bleakness of real-life warfare. It raised questions not only about our mortality, but if fighting in today's world is truly worth it. With the use of the atomic bomb in 1945, it set a dangerous precedent that the following innovation could wipe out not only people, but countries. The tension of the Cuban Missile Crisis in the early 60s was a legitimate fear for America. After these events, the use of missiles or nuclear weapons is an unnerving future we've all had to come to accept, whether we like it or not. With political figures, flippant remarks about bombs, and nuclear warfare, the thought of a handful of people pressing the red button, life for many, would cease to exist. Why modern warfare is a major success is it appreciates these threats and tries to weave a sophisticated story of deception and stark crisis moments. The access to digital media and civilians being able to freely report via social media, we have all become acutely aware of the ramifications of the terror attacks and war. These introspective thoughts that I have on this beloved game stem from Alex Garland's Civil War. A brief synopsis is the film follows a group of journalists and photographers documenting a modern civil war in America. The game and the film have undeniable similarities visually, especially in their depictions of Washington. What resonated with me was the most refreshing change of perspective in the war element. We spectate this film through the eyes of photographers who don't have an agenda and are doing it just to preserve the truth, no matter what. With this game, we are giving varying perspectives from different military groups fighting, but no Russian attempts a heinous gaming first. Playing as the bad guys isn't a gaming first, but the extent of their evil is something we typically don't see, especially with civilians. In all forms of media representation, it's rare to see something so heinous and graphic for such a prolonged period, especially when it's not something vitriolic. Why I became so engrossed with this mission was the different perspective it brought. The original Modern Warfare did this with a nuclear explosion.
Everyone hang on!
The likes of Oppenheimer dominating cinemas in 2022. Only then, upon replaying, could I truly appreciate the vision for that mission. Whilst this blockbuster of a game is focused on shooting, war, explosions, seeing a terror attack and being complicit in it stands out. Films like Casablanca, The Imitation Game and Good Morning Vietnam are all set during a war or civil conflict. These are alternative stories to your typical boots-on-ground war films. They make for a refreshing change of scenery from all-out warfare films and battles we've all become accustomed to. All gamers can appreciate different stories and different perspectives to make war scenarios dynamic. This level was created by Mohammed Alavi, which proved to make this segment a defining moment beyond just the Call of Duty franchise. Advancement in game technology meant you could mocap performances which brought a level of human element that differentiated itself from the years of yesteryear. Instead of pixelated shades of red obliterating or awkwardly falling polygon models, it reached a new level. Its realism and harsh conditions took a step closer, bridging the visual gap between fantasy and reality. Alavi, striving to raise serious questions about humanity and our actions, was at the cost of alienating his colleagues. In an interview with IGN, he went on to say that many of the team were conflicted or repulsed at the thought of playing it. Instead of doubling down, he made the conscious effort to make it skippable, should people feel vehemently against it. Though this mission is iconic for all gamers, at its release it created a media frenzy. For all its criticism, it was met with media personalities who championed its significant stance. The frenzy began when this level was leaked without context. Media outlets likened it to the Mumbai attacks from the year before. The setting of an airport had undeniable links to the 9/11 terrorist attack. Outlets like The Guardian were doing a moral way-up with audience participation in graphic gaming segments. The Daily Mail argued this level was a marketing ploy rather than a statement. As the saying goes, any attention is good attention. These media storms seem antiquated in today's news. This subject was at the tail end of negative gaming representation in mainstream media, and the premise that video games are inherently bad. The Call of Duty franchise is the embodiment of how gaming is perceived by outsiders. For gamers, it's a yearly fix to play multiplayer maps whilst giving abuse in live chats. What compels me to play Modern Warfare games, beyond glossy rail system set pieces, is the depiction of war in their campaign. Yes, the Michael Bay explosions demonstrate fidelity, sound and cinematic warfare, but seeing war and terror from the view of bystanders provides an even darker narrative. As gaming has become a more sophisticated medium that emulates compelling TV, gamers are seeking a grittier lived experience. What No Russia does so well is depict barbarous acts against civilians. Whilst it has to be reminded of its fiction, replaying this mission is uncomfortable. We as Call of Duty fans have gone through campaigns actively playing roles in massacres and war crimes, and yet this feels wrong. Modern Warfare as a series is undoubtedly and unashamedly edgy. While the second trilogy has added gameplay mechanics for more realistic cover shooting, none of the missions level with No Russian. As the gaming medium has aged, so too has the desire for better stories that level with the best TV shows and films. Though there will always be a Marvel blockbuster or a new action film starring The Rock, these popcorn flick audiences will always latch onto the likes of Call of Duty. Missions like No Russian transcend mindlessly shooting and being passive. They raise ethical questions, creating moral ambiguity, but most importantly, creating a lasting message. There's no political undertone as such because we can all unanimously agree killing innocent bystanders is wrong. It's a slow, drawn out way of making you feel inherently guilty should you choose to partake in Makarov's plans. There are very few moments in the history of gaming that make a player genuinely uncomfortable with having to play the game, and this is one of them.
That was no message. This is a message.
The Americans thought he could deceive us. When they find that body, all of Russia will cry for war.
Thank you for letting me obsess again.